so we'll get started. So we're going to start off our core and floor in the lying position. So just on your back with your knees bent up. So we're just going to start engaging our pelvic floor. So we're just going to start with lifting and lowering while breathing through it. So just starting on our backs, Hayley, for you who joined, we're just going to be lifting and lowering our pelvic floor while breathing through it. So the first exercise that we're going to start off with is our knee fallout, a single knee fallout. So you want to keep your pelvis nice and controlled. You want to turn on your pelvic floor. And we just want to let one leg fall out to the side and then control it back together. And then the same on the other side, let that leg fall out and control it back together. I'll get you to start. So Lily, who just joined, we're just doing our single leg fallouts. So one leg falls out to the side and comes back together, and the other leg out to the side and comes back together. Keeping the knee that's not moving nice and stable, like you've got a wine glass on top, falling out to the side and coming back together, making sure there's not too much movement in your hips. Falling out, coming back together. And again, one leg out to the side, nice and controlled, and the other leg out to the side and nice and controlled back together. We're going to do 3 more on each leg, coming out to the side, nice and controlled back together, and the other leg out to the side and back together. And the first leg again, and coming back, and the other leg out and coming back. One more time on each leg. Keep that control and that engagement of your pelvic floor. And lastly, the other leg out and back together. I'll get you to relax your pelvic floor, take some nice deep breaths in. Now we're going to start our one-legged stretch. So we're going to bring one leg, we're just going to hover it just above the floor, the heel just above the floor, and point out down, and then control that leg and place it back down. And the same on the other leg. Just hovering it a few centimeters above the floor, don't let your heel touch the floor, straighten your knee, and then control it and bringing your feet back in line with each other. Keeping a gap between your knees and nice control of your pelvis. Don't let your hips drop too much, and you've got a nice arch in your lower back. We're just going to reach out all the way down, straighten that knee, and control the legs and come back together. And the same on the other leg. Nice and controlled down and coming back together. And the first leg again. Nice and controlled down. Bending that knee back up. And the other leg, stretching it out, pointing those toes. Nice and controlled back together. We're going to do this 6 more times on each foot. So we're going to straighten that leg out. Nice straight knee, hovering back together. And the other leg, pointing those toes. And bending at the knee, coming back together. Number 2, bringing that leg out into extension. Bending that knee back up. And the other leg. Nice and straight. And back up again. Number 3, straightening that leg out. Nice and controlled back together. And the other leg, straightening that knee and back together. Number 4, remember to keep your pelvic floor engaged. Nice stretch. And controlling those legs back together. And the other leg, just hovering above the floor. And coming back together. Number 5, bringing that leg above the floor, pointing those toes, coming back together nice and controlled, and the other leg, pointing those toes, nice big stretch, straightening that knee, and coming back together. Good, take some deep breaths here. Relax your pelvic floor down. Now, our next one is we're going to do a version of that stretch. It's a little bit harder. So this time, we're going to bring our leg up, point our toe, keep our thighs in line with each other, back to tabletop and down. So we'll do that again. So float the leg up into tabletop, straighten that knee, pointing those toes, keeping your thighs in line, back to tabletop, and controlling that leg down. So we're going to do this 8 times on each leg. So up into tabletop, straightening that knee out so those thighs are in line, back to tabletop, and lowering it down. And again, floating that knee up, straightening that knee, back into tabletop, and lowering it back down. Number 2, float that leg up, straighten that knee, bring it back into tabletop, and lower it back down to the floor. And again on the other side, up into tabletop, straightening that knee, back into tabletop, and lowering that foot down. Once again, we make sure we've got nice good control at our hips, and we have still a small space between our lower back and the floor or your mat. So coming back up again, number 3, back into tabletop, straightening that knee, coming back again, and down to the floor. And the other leg, up into tabletop, straightening that knee, make sure your thighs are in line, back into tabletop, and slowly bringing that leg down. Number 4, coming into tabletop, straightening that knee, back into tabletop, and down. And the other leg, coming to tabletop, straightening that knee, back into tabletop, and down. Number 5, floating that leg up, straightening through that knee, coming back again, and bringing that leg down. And the other leg, tabletop, straightening that knee, back into tabletop, and coming back down. 3 more times on each leg, floating that leg up, straightening your knee, back into tabletop, and down. And the other leg, back into tabletop, straightening that knee, coming into tabletop, and lowering back down. 2 more times on each leg, floating, straightening, floating, and down. Floating, straightening, floating, down. 1 more time on each leg, floating, straightening, floating, down. Last one, floating that knee, straightening that leg, floating, and back down. Very good. Take some nice deep breaths in here. Let your pelvic floor relax. Okay. What we want to do now is we're going to come up into our bridges. So we're going to place hands on either side of your body, keeping your knees, keeping a space between your knees and your feet hip width apart. We're going to rock our pelvis back, and then we're going to lift our bottom up off the floor. And we're going to slowly roll back down and relax. Making sure your knees are not knocking, keeping that nice control. If you're finding it difficult, you can pop a pillow between your legs. So rolling back, lifting up, nice and controlled, coming down. And again, rolling back, lifting up, and slowly rolling back down. And again, rolling back, lifting, and coming back down. And again, rolling your pelvis back, pushing through your feet, and rolling back down. Number 5, lifting and slowly coming down. 3 more, rolling your pelvis back, pushing through your feet, lifting your bum as high as you can, and slowly back down. 2 more, lifting and slowly rolling down. Last one, rolling your pelvis back, lifting up your bottom nice and high, and slowly coming down. All right, relax your pelvic floor, take some nice deep breaths in here. Okay, what I'm going to get everyone to do now is I'm going to get everyone to roll onto their stomachs. So we're going to do a bit of a hamstrings exercise. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring the foot up. We're going to point our toe. We're going to then pulse and bring our heel back. Then pulse, point our toe. And then we're going to bring the leg back down again. So I'll go through that again. So pointing the toe, bringing the heel back, pointing the toe, and controlling back down. So point, heel, point, down. So I'll get everyone to follow through with me. We're going to do that 8 times on each side. So we're going to point, heel, point, down. Then point, heel, heel, point, down. And again, point, heel, point, down. Point, heel, point, down. Bit of control with that one. Bit of coordination. And again, point, heel, point, down. 3 more times. Point, heel, point, down. Point, heel, point, down. One more. Point, heel, point, down. Okay, we're going to give that a go on the other leg. So we're going to point our toe, bring our heel back, point our toe back down. So point, heel, point, down. 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 3 more times. Point, heel, point, down. 2 more. Point, heel, point, down. Last one. Point, heel, point, down. Okay, take some nice deep breaths. If you're holding onto your pelvic floor, make sure you relax that through your breathing. So now what we're going to do is we're going to, if you have a cushion, you can use that if you've got one nearby. If not, you can just bring your hands together. I'm just going to use our magic circle. So we want to come into a kneeling position. So hands on either side of the magic circle, and we want to have a nice even squeeze of the circle. So not too hard, not too soft, just so you've got nice even squeeze. So we're going to bring the circle out in front of us or your cushion. If you don't have a cushion, just place your hands together. So we're going to give it a squeeze. We're going to come up into extension, and we're slowly going to bend at the hips, keeping the pressure on your hands even throughout the whole movement. So we're going to squeeze, come up, and slowly come down and relax. Squeeze, come up, and slowly come down and relax. And again, squeeze your circle or your cushion, coming up, and then slowly folding at the hips and relax. And again, give that circle a squeeze, coming up and slowly coming down, keeping that control and relax. We're going to do this another 3 times. Squeezing that circle, coming up, and then slowly controlling down and relax. And again, squeezing that circle, coming up, and slowly coming down. Relax. 2 more times, giving that circle a squeeze, coming up, and slowly folding at the hips and relax. 1 more time, giving that circle a squeeze, coming up into extension, and slowly coming down. Good. You can pop your magic circle or your cushion to the side. Give your shoulders a bit of a roll. Take some nice deep breaths in. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to come into our 4-point kneeling. So we want our hands to be shoulder width apart. We want our knees to be hip width apart. We want our spine in neutral. So make sure you're not curving too much one way and not curving too much the other way. You've got a nice neutral spine, pushing through the arms. Don't let your head collapse. So we're going to bring one leg and one arm out, and we're going to control it back together. And the other leg and arm out, and controlling it back together. And again, bringing one arm and leg out, and controlling it back together.
And the other arm and leg out. And coming back together. And again on the first arm and the opposite leg, reaching forward and coming down. And on the other arm and leg, and coming back together. 3 more times on each side, reaching forward and back together. And the other arm and leg out and back together. If you need to reset yourself, you can. And again, reaching and slowly back together. And the other arm and leg, reaching and coming back together. Okay, one more time on each side, reaching forward. Nice stretch, coming back together. And the other arm and leg out. And coming back together. All right, I'll get everyone to take a deep breath in here. Okay, for our next one, we're going to do the same movement, but instead of bringing the arm and leg back down together, we're going to keep our leg out. We're going to do 3 nose taps, and then we're going to come back down. So again, set yourself up nicely. Hands shoulder width apart, knees hip width apart. So we're going to bring one arm and leg out. 1, 2, 3 taps, and coming back down. And the other arm and leg, bringing that arm and leg out. 3 taps for your nose, and then back down together. And again, other arm and leg, reaching out forward, controlling that leg. 1, 2, 3, down. And the other arm and leg, reaching out. 1, 2, 3, and down. Good. If you're finding this too tricky, just stick to bringing one arm, one leg out, or doing 1 tap instead of 3. So one arm and the other leg out. 1, 2, 3. Back down. And the other leg and arm out. 1, 2, 3. And back down. And again. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And again, reaching the arm and leg out. 1, 2, 3. And the opposite arm and leg out. 1, 2, 3. And back down. One more time on each side. Reaching out. 1, 2, 3. Down. And the other arm and leg out. 1, 2, 3. And coming back down. All right, taking some nice deep breaths. Have a bit of a stretch forward if you need to. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to do our thread the needle exercise. So we're going to be on all fours again. We're going to bring one arm through the space between the other arm and leg and lean down on that shoulder. Gives our upper backs a nice stretch. And then coming back up, bringing that hand down and doing the same on the other side. Reaching through that space, bringing your shoulder down and coming back up again. This is really good if you have a stiff upper back or if you're sitting at a desk for long periods of time. So bringing that arm through, stretching that shoulder and that upper back, coming back up, and the other arm and leg, the other arm
coming through and back again. And again, giving a nice stretch. Back up. And the other arm. And back up. 2 more times on each side, bringing that arm through the space. Back up. And the other arm. And back up. 1 more time on each side, bringing that arm through. Back up. And the other arm. And back up. Perfect. All right, so now we're just going to finish with our pelvic floor exercises. So I get everyone to get into a comfortable position on your back, some nice breathing just to relax pelvic floor and all the muscles we've been using. Just some nice deep breathing. So we're going to do our pelvic floor pyramid. So if you're a little bit unsure what your pelvic floor is, it's just a group of muscles on the underside of your pelvis. It holds all your pelvic organs in. Some people feel that a good cue is holding your urine mid-flow, that sort of a sensation, or trying to hold in gas. So that's what we're going to do with our pelvic floor lifts. So we're going to start off with 5 lifts. So we're going to lift, then lower. So we're going to do that 5 times. So lift and lower, lift and lower, lift, lower, lift, lower, lift, and lower. Taking some deep breaths and relax that pelvic floor. Now we're going to do 5 fast contractions. So it's going to go lift, lower, lift, lower, lift, lower. So we're going to do that 5 times. So we're going to start, we're going to do lift, lower, lift, lower, lift, lower, lift, lower, lift, lower, and relax. Nice deep breaths. Now what we're going to do is going to lift our pelvic floor. We're going to hold it nice and strong for 5 seconds. So we're going to lift, 2, 3, 4, 5, and relax. Deep breath here. And we're going to do that again. We're going to lift nice and strong for 5 seconds. So we're going to lift, 2, 3, 4, 5, and relax. Again, a nice deep breath, relaxing that pelvic floor. Now we're going to do 5 quick contractions again. So the pace is lift, lower, lift, lower, lift, lower. So we're going to start, we're going to lift, lower, lift, lower, lift, lower, lift, lower, lift, lower, and fully relax. Taking in a nice deep breath. And our last one is 5 nice strong contractions. So we're going to lift and lower, lift and lower, lift and lower, lift and lower, lift and lower. All right, finish. Just taking some nice deep breaths. You can get into your butterfly pose just to help stretch everything and relax everything. Nice deep breathing through here.
All right, guys, that ends our core and floor for today. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you guys. We have another class on Saturday if you're going to join. Bye.